Hello everyone! Welcome to Datalore, as well to our onboarding webinar. I'm so excited to have you here. I'm Vlad, Solutions Architect here at JetBrains. I'm live from our office in Amsterdam, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. While we're preparing everything to embark on our data journey, let me cover what can you expect today. We'll talk today about Datalore's interface and core concepts, how to use its key features for data analysis. I'll share some best practices for collaboration with your team, and finally, I'll tell you a few tips and tricks that might boost your productivity. At the end of the webinar, we'll have some time for a Q&A sections if there are some questions that may arise. So as long as you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask it. I'll have a closer look at the end of the webinar and answer them. I am so excited to tell you more, so let's get started. As you are probably already aware, Datalore is a data science collaborative platform aimed at streamlining team research workflows. It integrates a development environment for data scientists, facilitating data connection, working on notebooks faster, and presenting results. Alongside these core features, it allows collaborative editing, sharing, and commenting similar to Google Docs. So, I mentioned two important keywords, data and collaboration, which we'll start our exploration with. Among that, there are three concepts: Workspaces, notebooks, and reports, but we'll see them further. Let me share my screen so we can explore together what all of this means when used in conjunction with Datalore. All right, so that's the screen that you saw when you first logged in into Datalore for the very first time. But are you fully aware of what is hidden here? No worries, I'll guide you through whatever we have here. First of all, the very left menu. It lists all of your workspaces, starting with the private workspace, the one that only you have access to, your team workspace, the workspace that is shared across your team, and furthermore, the workspaces that you've been explicitly invited to are listed in alphabetical order. If you need to create another workspace, that's also an option. It's just a matter of clicking the New Workspace button at the lower end of this menu. And just so you know, you can create an unlimited number of such workspaces, keeping the least privilege, or we might say least access principle, enforced here as part of your usual workflow. But what is the workspace, first of all? In fact, that's a logical unit that combines a few things under the hood. All of its notebooks, the reports. Don't worry if you're not yet aware of what the report is, we'll cover that in this webinar too. Data connectors, and a few other things. Even more, the whole concept of the workspace implies that if you want, you can easily share everything this workspace has by just clicking the Share button, this one, next to the workspace name. With a single exception here, though, the private workspace is named as such just because it can't be shared with anyone else. Just saying. All right, so next, there is a team workspace. And that might raise a question. Where does this team come from? And who can be invited to this team? The answer is simple. Let's move to Datalore's Team Admin panel to see what's inside. In short, when you're signing up for Datalore trial, you're essentially forming a team of a single person. That said, Datalore gives you an option to invite someone to collaborate with you within a single team, and that could be super handy. If you're using, let's say, the same company-wide data source, or you'd like to have a centralized billing for the computational resources out of the based subscription scope, like credits, Datalore's internal currency. Other than that, there might be a use case when, for example, you would like to restrict a certain team member from using expensive GPU instances. That's also possible with Datalore's computational profiles. With a few clicks, you can define the profile. Well, in short, define which machines are available and assign such a profile to a specific user. I don't have anyone in my team, unfortunately, so I can only assign a profile to myself for the time being. Well, that's too bad. And just saying, the general credit and storage limit can be also set from the admin panel. Well, enough about the teams. Datalore is about the data, and to process the data, it needs to be ingested from somewhere. With Datalore, there are three approaches to this. So the first approach is the Files tab, which we can see on the screen right now, which allows you to either upload something from your local machine or use a previously created artifact generated by one of the notebooks. So as we've already learned, the workspace is something that is shared across everything within this workspace. So that means that if one of the notebooks has created something, it becomes immediately available by whoever is invited to collaborate onto that workspace. And this means that if you need to ask your colleague for help with the project you're working on, you can invite your colleague to the designated workspace, and they'll have access to everything you have configured today. But now to the more complicated and interesting topic, the databases. In this section, you can configure how Datalore communicates with the remote relational databases. And speaking about this, I would say that we have a lot of them available out of the box. In other words, Datalore can connect to almost every popular database engine existing in the world. Let's say it's going to be Postgres or MariaDB or even Oracle. It's entirely up to you. The only thing you need to do when you're connecting to the database is to enter the creds for this database and save them once on Datalore server side. But don't worry about these being leaked or shared with someone else. Datalore security model prevents this from happening. These credentials are served on the server side, and in fact are never shared with any of the user-controlled environments. And last but not least thing here is you can connect an external storage to your Datalore environment. Whether you have an Amazon S3 compliant bucket or Azure storage account or the Google Cloud storage, this won't be a problem, as Datalore supports any of the S3 compliant storage providers, as well as SMB shares, yes, and the Google Cloud is also an option. So, as we become more acquainted with what Datalore offers in terms of data connectivity, let's move further and finally see the remaining features of Datalore in action. So let's move to the back screen, main screen, and let's start with our Getting Started notebook, the very first notebook you saw once you logged into Datalore. And just so you know, it gives you not only an option to explore what features Datalore has to offer, but there is a short and funny quiz hidden in its cells as well that gives you a valuable prize, at 10% over your Datalore subscription. But let's jump to the main part. And good for me that I think I have saved, yes, a link out of the favorite blocks. So if you have ever used a Jupyter-like tool, you are already aware of what the Datalore cell is. However, if you're just starting your data journey, here's a small refresher for you. A cell is like a box or a compartment where you can still write and execute code, text, or any other content. But one of the major advantages of Datalore is that in comparison with this classic Jupyter, which has only two cell types, the Markdown cell or the code cell, Datalore has a lot more to offer. Widget cells, SQL cells, and many, many more, thus extending the basic cells functionality. Well, but that's too boring for now, so let's jump over to the hot and trendy topic, Gen AI. Of course, Datalore has a built-in AI assistant, which we refer as Autopilot. So let's do some computations first. So we need some data to be processed first before we start doing some AI magical stuff. Okay, so now I see it's ready and I can go and create a new code cell and ask Autopilot to do something for me. For example, I have the table here, and now I want to build something on top of this table. So I would ask Autopilot to build, let's say, a plot for me. So create a plotly pie chart. Chart showing the distribution by the city column in the sales 1 data frame. So now AI Assistant is doing its job. It's trying to analyze the context, and now it's trying to build something for me. So let's see what it's up to. Okay, so that's why not? Obviously, we can go further and ask it to improve if we need to. So for example, if that's not something I was really looking for example, I would like to see the distribution not only by cities, but to have the product lines there, I can also add another question here saying, let's replace this with the bar chart showing the correlation between the city and what we have here. We have, let it be product line, customer type, let it be customer type, showing the total on the Y axis. And again, Datalore's autopilot is iterating over what it already had. Now it tries to suggest us an additional option. So we'll see. Okay. Well, that is something, but it might be not something we were looking for, but we can ask it again. Okay, now it's there. Oh, let's ask it there. I want the customer types to be separate bars within a single chart, not a single bar. So now let's see what Datalore Autopilot comes with. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and we're almost there. One more second. Oh, okay, we're good. And let's run it, see, and yes. And now, from the third iteration, but still, we were able to get whatever we were looking for without writing us a single line of code. So let's relax for a while and see what we've done. In fact, we've answered a potentially important business question and made a sales analysis overview with just a few AI prompts. That's pretty cool, right? And that's included already in the Datalore Cloud subscription, including your ongoing trials. So you can enjoy a helping hand from our autopilot by upgrading in a few clicks. Now, to the other important thing, the thing what we call the interactive widget cell. The cells of this kind allow the notebook users to define a runtime variable in a user-friendly and convenient way, removing the necessity to create a programmatic definition of such a variable. You might ask yourself, well, why do I need this? Because I can write a few lines of code, and for sure, that's technically true. However, in case you'd like to present this notebook to someone else who's less experienced in programmatic statements, for example, your business team, this might be unnecessarily complex. And on the contrary, the widget cell simplifies the workflow, and even more, it can be reused later while building the report, and we'll get there very, very soon to see how it works. So, just so you know, the allowed values of this widget can be defined not only statically, like they are defined here, but programmatically as well. For example, you can check out something from the database and then use these derived values from the database as the allowed values of this widget. So this could be used as a way of simplifying your workflows within the notebook. Now, to my favorite part here, so the one. We call this thing a SQL cell, and that's exactly how Datalore can talk with your database without any hassle of setting up the connection and worrying about the credentials management. So once you click the execute button, the written query is executed against the select databases, well, Snowflake in my case, but I have a few of them connected. And then the received data is saved to another runtime variable called sales_1 in this case. And here's the pro tip. You can use SQL cells not only with the relational databases configured on the workspace level, but with the SQLite database as well. Even more, a pandas data frame can be used here as a target for the SQL cell query. So as you can see here, in this cell, we are saving the result to a sales_1 variable, which in fact is a pandas data frame. So that said, by using the SQL cell data frame query functionality, you can go and use the sales1 as a table name using the SQL syntax to query your data frame directly. And I think that could be super handy. So, other than that, SQL cells, they add 3 more important aspects into looking into your data. These are filtering, visualization, and statistic overview. So let's start with the filtering. There are multiple clauses which you can filter your table on, but eventually you'll see what you are asking for. Well, for example, let's make it this more than or equal to 10,000. Now the filter is applied, but with one small addition though. Once the filter is applied, you are now able to export the filtering condition onto another code cell, making sure it becomes permanent should you want to continue your exploration with this specific dataset slide further. Now, let's talk about the visualization. With Datalore, you no longer need to write a single line of code to get an insight into your data, as we have a few plot options available in the SQL cells out of the box. Just make sure you select a proper chart type, and that's pretty much it. So in this example, I think we need to do something like this. City, product line, and total. And in this way, we were able to build a kind of complex plot without writing, again, a single line of code. And that's pretty cool. And last but not least thing here is statistics tab. So here you can get a brief statistical overview of the data received from the given database query. Of course, every number from this table can be collected manually by evaluating a respective pandas statement. But why should you if there is a tool that is built into Datalore itself? That's pretty handy, right? Okay, apart on the computational part of the product, there is another thing that we would love to highlight for you today. And this is the second key concept of Datalore-enabled workflow. This is what we call collaboration. As you see already, we are not alone in this notebook anymore. One of my teammates has joined this session, and apparently he was about to do something. And the notebook I'm working on as well. This happens seamlessly. While we can technically interfere with each other, the collaboration works as smoothly as it only could be, boosting your team productivity. So, for example, he's writing there, I'm writing there. Hello as well. So that's how Datalore's collaboration works. And you can see on the right-hand side, there are multiple persons are working onto the same notebook. So just so you know, there could be an unlimited amount of users who are working onto the same notebook altogether. And even in case something goes wrong, unexpected change is made, that happens. You can always roll everything back by using Datalore's history, as Datalore keeps track of every change this notebook has been ever made in its internal memory. So that was a short introduction into Datalore's collaboration model. And I think I just received an email from Datalore saying that there is a comment. Oh yeah, that's true. My colleague has left a comment saying that I need to check something out. And of course I will, but once I finish the webinar, because it's not so convenient to change something, to check something, and to tell you about how Datalore works. So I'll keep this aside for now, so I'll resolve the thread. I hope I won't forget this. Sorry. All right, now let's think about the scenario where you, build everything. So you have your plots, you have your numbers, you have something. But now you would like to share the results with your, let's say, business teams. And here's the thing. They usually don't like long blocks of source code. So they normally don't care about this. They care about the numbers, the schemas, anything like that. The good news is that you'll be able to tackle this challenge together with Datalore, and that's exactly what the reports are for. So what is the report? In fact, this is an interactive dashboard which can be useful to share your findings with someone else, regardless of whether they are Datalore users or not. But this dashboard has to be configured prior to be shared, and that's what the report builder is for. Long story short, that's the place where all of the interactive widgets are finally playing their role, allowing users to control their design flow interactively without dealing with the source code blocks. Additionally, the report builder provides us with an interactive canvas where all of the cells can be arranged in the way you want them to be. So for example, if I want to move this cell to the left and this to the left, it's fine, I can do this right away. Once you made everything you thought of, the report is ready to be published. For that, you need to click the Update Report button. And as you can see here, there are a few things that needs to be made before the report is going to be live. One of them is access settings. So there are two options to make the report public or private. If the report is made public, that means that whoever has link, they will be able to access this report. If the report is restricted, this means that the report will be accessible only for those who have access to your workspace. So in short, as long as you share the workspace with someone else, this means that this person will be able to access this report given they have a link as well. We didn't cover that in this webinar yet, but just so you know, Datalore has two editions, Datalore Cloud, the one we're looking at, and Datalore On-Premises. And in Datalore On-Premises, there is the third option, which is called editors. Sorry, not editors, but viewers, view users. And this means that if user is authenticated in Datalore, but they're not invited to this workspace, they might be able to see this report as well. But this is something that is not available in Datalore Cloud yet. So Datalore Cloud has two options, public and restricted access. And the second option is the report type. So the report could be either static or interactive. This means that if the report is static, it cannot be interacted with. So it's compiled once and it stays as is unless you rebuild it. If the report is interactive, like it is right now, this means that you can interact with this report. So let's see finally how the interactive reports works. So as long as the report is configured, let's go ahead and update it. And after a few seconds of waiting, Datalore will generate a link which we can follow and see what is up to. So here's how Datalore's reports look like. And here's the thing, like we said already, here's where all of these widgets are finally playing their role. So for example, you can do it like this. And once you modify the widget value, what happens under the hood now? So Datalore starts to rebuild the report on the fly. Basically, as it now knows the new value of all of these widgets, it is now able to recalculate everything it's aware of. And as we can see right now, the graph has changed. Because, in fact, we've modified the widget value, which in its own turn was a part of the SQL query clause in the very beginning of this notebook. So that said, by doing a simple mouse click, we've just modified a SQL query, which in fact gave us another data set, which in its own turn gave us a new plot that we can see here on the screen. And of course, as we've seen already, there's also an option to comment the report. So imagine the situation when you're sharing these findings with someone else, and these people are maybe concerned, maybe they're not aware of something, maybe they have questions. So it's easy to go and ask the question right away. So I can ask myself, because that's my report, what is this? Or let's say like a TBD, oh, sorry, replace this something. All right, and once I go to the editing interface back, I can always see this report comment here as well. So we have some kind of feedback from my colleague, and I have my own comment derived from the report. So that was basically it about Datalore. So there are a few more things that we didn't cover, and we are going to talk about that right now. So the first thing I wanted to talk today is how Datalore's computation works. So whatever you've been running on your Datalore's environment, it's available as the computational machine under our infrastructure's hood. So it's made fully transparent for Datalore's customers, meaning the only thing they need to do is to start the machine and write some code. Even more, with your Datalore Cloud subscriptions, there are some free computational profiles included there. So, for example, for your trials or the cloud-free subscriptions, there is 120 hours of CPU as machine, And when I say CPU-S, I mean we have lots of them, like CPU-S, L, XL. So you can see it over here. The difference is the CPU cores and the amount of memory accessible to that specific machine. But for the Datalore Cloud subscription, you have 750 hours of CPU-L machine, which is like twice more powerful in terms of the CPU and 4 times more powerful in the RAM. So given that, you might be able to fit even more in your computations, given the same level of subscription. That's pretty cool. And even more, we're giving you a lot more storage, twice more than on the free trial. But coming back to them from the machines to the general overview of this, for the specifics to the general overview, sorry. What's the difference? And why do you might want to change these on the fly? So for example, you might want to do some explorations or analysis on the small machine, which doesn't consume a lot of resources, but then you might want to connect your machine to a production database, and in its own turn, it might require a lot more resources. So given that, you might want to do something on the cheap machine, not to consume a lot of resources, and then once you need to do it on a real data, you can easily switch over the machine to another instance type. So for example, if I need to switch over from CPU-S to CPU-L, I'll do this right away with a single click. Well, 2 clicks, 1 click and confirmation model. And I need to wait for a few seconds while Datalore is spinning up everything again on the new machine. And now the machine is ready. So you just, we've waited for, I don't know, like 10 seconds, maybe 20, and even thinking less. And the machine is live, ready for your new data exploration. And another thing to mention on the screen is Datalore has an option to run everything on schedule. So as you can see here, I have 2 schedules defined. At 7 p.m. at 4 a.m. my local time zone. So I can define as many schedules as I'd like, but why do I need these schedules? Why might you need some schedules? The answer is simple. So for example, well, there is no answer for that, but there might be use cases that could be similar to your workflows. So for example, the use case I was thinking of when I set this up is, since my notebook is about the data analysis, about the sales analysis, so this could be an option when the business day is over and nothing is happening during the overnight, and I would like to do some huge analysis overnight. In this case, I can put this to be executed at 4 a.m., therefore making sure no one else will interfere with this data. So at the Monday morning, well, not Monday, but Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever, next day morning, I can have a fresh set of data with my report, so I don't have to wait, especially if the report is static. And potentially last but not least thing here is the kernel. So everything we saw here is running on Python, since that's like a golden standard of nowadays data science industry. But just so you know, Datalore has 4 kernels available to be deployed, and these are Python, Kotlin, Scala, and R. All right, so I think we're almost done here. One more thing to mention here is we covered this already, but still, just so you know, Datalore comes with 2 editions, Datalore Cloud and Datalore On-Prem, and almost everything we've covered here is related to both of them. While the core functionality remains the same, Datalore On-Premises has 3 key advantages over the cloud one. The first one is the on-premises means that it can be installed on your infrastructure, and the second two differences, these are the single sign-on support and an option to deploy a custom agent. So the custom agent means that if you'd like to customize your specific environment you're working on, it can be done both in Datalore Cloud, of course, and in Datalore On-Prem, with one small difference. If you want to do this with Datalore Cloud, you need to modify this one, the init.sh file, which actually is a bash script, which executes once when the notebook is starting up. The difference is it does it every time the notebook is starting up, so it's not so convenient yet to be used frequently in the cloud environment. While we are working on the solution of that, so currently it can be solved by using Datalore on-premises custom agent deployments, meaning you can build everything you already need and ship it to your offline Datalore instance. And of course, there might be some compliance requirements which requires you to operate something on-premises, not in the cloud. In this case, Datalore on-premises is super helpful as well. Nevertheless, even despite Datalore on-prem adds a few advantages, there are lots of cases where these are not so beneficial. So Datalore Cloud is better to be used here instead, as it provides almost the same experience, but without any extra infrastructural and operational costs. So I think that's it from me today. So we're about to wrap up today's session, and I'll be happy to answer any questions if there's any. So let's have a closer look at the Q&A sections. Okay. So I see a few comments in our chat. Yes, sorry, I wasn't following the chat while I was presenting. Can we be provided with materials to follow along? Yes, for sure. So I'll talk to our marketing team to see what we can do in terms of the following up the materials. But if you're specifically interested in something, please let us know. We're happy to chat. So there is, you can find our contacts in the support section for documentation. So if you open up Datalore docs, there is a section called support where you can find out our contact email. So as long as you'll be able to write us a note about that, well, I was on the webinar, could you please let me know something? Even myself, or my colleagues will be able to answer you and provide whatever resources you have. Or if you have any requests for help, if you have something to share with us, we are happy to hear more about your story of Datalore. Okay, so next question was, what is this? Well, that was a Datalore onboarding webinar. So we just talked about how you might use Datalore, how it could be useful for you. And again, if you have any concerns of doubts or anything else, just please let us know. I'll be happy to chat with you. Okay, I will ask Vladimir about this. Yes, I just answered this. Okay, so I don't see anything yet. So yeah, I think that's pretty it for now. Thanks everyone for attending the webinar. Thanks for watching. My pleasure to have you here, and until next time. Goodbye.